All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another virtual shouting session today with Hearts for Health. We're glad to be joined by Dr. Richard Harris. So, Dr. Harris, just to give him a brief introduction, he's a board-certified internal medicine physician, a pharmacist, and also the host of the Strive for Great Health podcast, specializing in lifestyle medicine, personalized medicine, and health coaching. Dr. Harris is also a lifelong learner. As we'll see later in the presentation, Dr. Harris, like I mentioned, he's a physician, a pharmacist, and has completed his MBA at the University of Houston. He's helped several startups navigate the healthcare market and co-founded New Spectrum Educational Consultants, an educational consulting company that helps students achieve success through resilience. So you can see that theme of lifelong learning will definitely play into this talk here with Dr. Harris. And we're really excited to have you on, Dr. Harris, for you to join us today. Not only to hear about how you've been practicing medicine, but also how you've branched out as a physician. That's always great to see. And you've kind of exemplified that through your journey. So I guess that's all for an introduction for Dr. Harris. Just a few quick reminders for those listening. If you're new to the format of shadowing sessions here at Hearts for Health, we have a Q&A at the end. So towards the last 10 to 15 minutes, we'll go through any questions. We have the chat that you can use. So feel free to type in any questions and we'll go through them all during the Q&A. Dr. Harris will answer them, and that will be the end of our session later in the hour. But also for those who want to stay updated with future virtual shouting sessions, you can follow us on Instagram, where we post announcements, flyers for new upcoming sessions. We have these weekly on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. So it's just a consistent schedule through the spring semester. We're planned with speakers. Also, you can join us on our listserv, where we send out announcements for future shouting sessions. You can do that by subscribing to our website. At the bottom of each page, there's a subscription form. Or you can email us at shadowing.h4h@gmail.com and ask to be added on our listserv. Just provide your name, your email, and we'll add you on. With that said, though, Dr. Harris, feel free to take it away.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, Michael. Again, I am Richard Harris. I like to tell people that I am a doctor, but that's not who I am. It's what I do. And we'll get into some of that in my keys to success and how I crafted my career. But we're going to talk about my story as a pharmacist, going to medical school and then getting an MBA. I'm crazy. I know that was like 15 years of school after college. It was a lot of time. And we'll talk about what I do now. We're going to talk about how I succeeded. And I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm not the most talented guy in the world. I'm the guy who sucked at everything when I first started doing it. Terrible, like absolutely terrible. And why I was able to get to where I am and how I think these things can help you no matter what your talent level is, because it doesn't matter so much about your talent. It matters about what you think about yourself and what you do. And then we're going to talk about what I wish I had done differently, right? Send myself back 21 years in the past. I'm 39 years old now. What do I wish I had known when I was 17, 18, maybe even in high school? So let's start off with my story. I really was interested in math and science as a kid. I was that kid who used to read books about whales and dolphins and sharks, and my classmates were reading about Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys and Goosebumps and stuff you guys have probably never heard of. But those were the books that kids read growing up. And I just wasn't interested in that. I was always interested in math and science. And I went to college with two real interests, physics and anatomy. And I thought I wanted to do biomedical physics, thought I wanted to make prosthetics. After a year of physics, I realized I love physics. I hate math, like really hate math. So I switched out of that into my second love, which was biology. I was doing clinical laboratory sciences. I thought I wanted to do research. I did bench research for 2 years. Wasn't for me. I was panicking at this time because I was about to graduate the following year, because I could have graduated early, and had no idea what I wanted to do. And luckily I worked in the dean of the pharmacy school's lab, and he said, basically, I think you're a smart kid. Come to pharmacy school. I think you make a good pharmacist. I was like, all right, cool. I had no idea what a pharmacist did. Hadn't looked into pharmacy school. Didn't know what I needed to do. Hurried up, got some stuff together, took the PCAT, went to pharmacy school. And then my first year in pharmacy school, I loved what I was learning. I loved the pharmacology. I loved the physiology. I had great classmates. University of Texas is an amazing school. I had a wonderful time there. And then I realized that I wanted to go to medical school. And this is how I realized it. Going to medical school was my dream when I was a kid, and I kind of got away from it. And I remember sitting in my room in my first year of pharmacy school and asking myself, if I don't go to medical school when I'm 65, looking back at my life, will I be mad at myself? And we're going to talk about how that thought process is one of my keys to success a little bit later. And after a couple of weeks of mulling it, I said, yes, if you don't try to go to medical school, you're going to be mad at yourself. And I always try to live with no regrets, right? I'm going to try. If I don't make it and if I fail, hey, I'm okay with that because at least I gave it my all. And so I thought about, well, do I want to quit medical school or quit pharmacy school to go to medical school? And I said no, because I'd never quit anything in my life. I'm not a quitter. All right. I'm not talented. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm for sure never going to be outworked. Like, you're never going to work harder than me. I can guarantee that. I have no problem being the hardest worker wherever I am. And so I said, I'm not a quitter. And so I didn't quit. And I got out of pharmacy school, went to work at MD Anderson here in Houston, Cancer Center, and worked there for a year. And I'd already gotten into medical school by the time I got there. And then I started medical school. And I worked as a pharmacist 20 hours a week in medical school to pay for medical school. It's kind of funny. I would get out of class and walk right across the street because that's where MD Anderson was. And then I go to work in the pharmacy. So my days would start at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't get home until 11 p.m. But, you got to do what you got to do to make everything work. And then once I got into residency, my residency is in internal medicine, I realized that I felt like something was missing. And part of my journey has always been, if I feel like something's missing, I'm going to go explore it. And I started to realize that I had all this clinical knowledge, but I knew nothing about business. Like, how do you run a business? What's important to a business? And how do you manage your own money? These are things I didn't know about. And I never wanted to hand someone else the keys and just, trust them and not know anything about what I was doing. So that's when I decided that, I wanted to do some stuff on the business side of medicine as well. And so I felt like going to pharmacy school, medical school, and getting the MBA was, to me, the complete picture of how I wanted to be and the career that I wanted. It took a while to get there, but we're going to talk about next what I do now, right? Because I utilize all three of my degrees. One of the primary things I do now is investing. After I got out of residency and started working, I realized that as a physician or a pharmacist or nurse or whatever aspect of healthcare, you only make money when you're present. And I said, well, what if I don't want to do this? What if someday I just want to walk away? What if I get sick and I can't work? What if all these scenarios, what am I going to do in that case? And I said, well, there's nothing. You don't have anything built for that. And I said, oh, no, I don't like that. I'm always someone who tries to think ahead. And I'm always someone who tries to think that, what if this doesn't work out? I plan for success, but I also plan for failure. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to have a secondary, tertiary plan. I usually have 3 or 4 or 5 backup plans. Right. And so the investing was, I didn't want to be like some of these physicians I saw who were in their 70s and still working. And I'm like, why are they still working? Because they want to make an income and they hadn't built anything to make an income passively. And that was like, okay, that's not going to be me. So I started doing private equity investing, did a little crypto investing, and also small business. So me and my business partner, we've bought into a couple businesses here in Houston, and we even have a paper factory over in Africa. And so we're continuing to work on all of these things and looking at a couple new investments right now, a radio station, actually. So typically my strategy is to invest in things that make a difference. I once heard Shaq say that he was talking to somebody, Warren Buffett or some of these big time investors. And they told him, invest in things that you think are going to make people's lives better. And he said his portfolio blossomed after that. And that's my kind of strategy, is that if I invest in things that are making people's lives better, even if I don't make money off of it, I've gained something, right? There's a tangible value to improving the lives of others. In fact, the book I'm reading right now, it's called Grit by Angela Duckworth, and she defines purpose as the intentionality we have to make someone else's life better every single day. You continually try to make people around you better, you're going to succeed financially in life. I always tell people, don't chase money, chase impact. You make an impact, you'll make money. Now, the next thing I do is consulting. So I have my own consulting practice. This kind of evolved out of my podcast, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But I started getting really heavy on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is by far the best business resource you could possibly have if you want to connect with people. I connect with students all the time. I connect with pharmacists. I connect with CEOs. And I've gotten to work with some really innovative startups in a consulting fashion. I'm the medical director for a pharmacy startup that's working on pharmacist prescriptive authority. I'm consulting for a company that has a little device that goes underneath pill bottles, so you can send real-time information about how people are taking their pills and reminders through that. I consult for numerous supplement companies as well. And it's been something that's really fun to me. I realized later that I love growing businesses. Like, absolutely love it. That's like my second favorite thing to do, is help these businesses grow and develop and solve these problems. Because I reached the point in my medical career where I felt like I had stopped growing and I stopped being challenged. And to me, that's when I get the urge to move. Like, I am comfortable being uncomfortable. I hate being comfortable. And so once I start to feel comfortable, it's time for the next challenge. And I'll just let you in. My next challenge right now is real estate, commercial real estate. I'm going to start learning about and investing in commercial real estate. Now, I imagine this is going to go really poorly the first couple of properties that we do, but that's the price to play. That's the price you get to learn. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. Next, what I do is media. So I have a podcast. That was the first business I ever started, was my podcast. I felt like there wasn't enough holistic lifestyle information out there. You know, the average physician visit is 15 minutes, with 7 of that being administrative work. So you get 7 minutes with a person, maybe every 3 to 6 months. And I was like, that's not enough time. Like, I can't even change my oil in 7 minutes. How am I going to help somebody with their health? And so I started creating resources that I could give people, books and printouts and stuff like that. And then I decided that, you know what? I love speaking. So let me start a podcast. And I started a podcast, Strive for Great Health podcast. When I was podcasting regularly, I hit the top 50 on iTunes in medicine. And it just talks about health, wellness, and lifestyle. Then I also do professional speaking. So I travel all around the country talking about holistic medicine to chiropractors and dentists and medical students. And that's really, really rewarding. I love being able to educate others on the stuff that I've learned. So I read a clinical trial a day. Most of my doctor colleagues have not read a clinical trial since they finished residency. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I take in that knowledge, and then I use that knowledge to help other people, either directly when I see patients or clients, or when I'm speaking on the stage. The last conference I gave was about insulin resistance, the underlying cause of diabetes. And I got an email from one of the people who attended the conference about a week later saying that he had used the information that he had learned at that conference to help a patient of his. This was a chiropractor, and he used it to help a family member. That is an awesome feeling. That's that purpose that I talked about, right? Outside of the monetary value of getting paid to speak, and the monetary value is nice, that is the best part, because now I impacted a life who went and impacted 2 lives, and who knows how many lives that those 2 people are going to impact, right? So you can see the ripple effect where you can literally impact 1 million lives, and all it does is just start with one person. Also, part of the media I do is online courses. So I had a lot of material that I would give people. And I said, okay, you know, we think in medicine that you can solve all the issues in the doctor's office. You can't. That's so little of the amount of time that a person spends in the doctor's office. Small fraction. You need to be able to reach people where they are. And people now more than ever are consuming information at home, podcasts, documentaries, online courses. And so I created a 5-week lifestyle medicine course, and it just talks about everything that I've learned over the years of lifestyle medicine, nutrition, exercise, stress management, toxin avoidance. But I also threw in mindset coaching, because in order to get someone to do something, we tend as humans to start with action, right? If I say, I want to hit the gym, the first thing we try to do is physically go to the gym. But what you actually need to start with is your why. Why do you want to go to the gym? You need to be crystal clear on your values, because once you understand your why and you're crystal clear on your values, it becomes easy. Me personally, I work out because I don't want to have chronic disease like my parents. I don't want to be old and sick like my parents. I don't want to be a burden to my kids. I don't want to be a burden to my wife. I don't want the regret of getting something that I know I could have prevented. These are all reasons. These are all my whys. But because I have these whys, it allows me to be crystal clear on my values. And then I form a new identity around it. So I tell myself all the time, I am someone who works out. I am someone who eats a nutrition plan to fuel my brain, body, and soul. I am someone who practices meditation and rest to allow myself to decompress and de-stress. And because you say that, because I say that to myself, it's my identity. And even when I don't have motivation, because you're not always going to have motivation, we know that. But if your identity is wrapped around something, you will go towards it even when you don't have motivation. So these are the things that I built into my course. And then lastly, I do telehealth. So I have my own small boutique telehealth practice. It's basically related to what we call functional medicine, root cause medicine. So when I think about a disease state, I don't think about, oh, you have diabetes, oh, you have high blood pressure, oh, you have irritable bowel. I think about root cause. There are 7 root causes of chronic disease: inflammation, toxins. Toxins are everywhere. We live in a very toxic society. Hormone abnormalities, mostly insulin resistance. There's also abnormal microbiome, gut microbiome. We have trillions of cells in our gut, and there's more DNA and genetic material in our gut than there is actually like our genetic material. So the microbiome influences every single portion of our lives, and that's another root cause of disease. Genetics is one, but it's very minor. Most of the diseases, when I hear people, oh, this runs in my family, I say, you know what else runs in your family? Habits. Because where do you think you got your habits from? Right. And we're starting to see that it's nurture more so than nature. And there's a whole field called epigenetics, which is really fascinating, that talks about how you change gene expression. And our genes, we used to think, are like light switches, 100% on, 100% off, but they're more like dimmers. You can move it, 10% active, 20% active, 30% active, and that can change based upon your environment. Nutrient deficiency is very common. 42% of the population is vitamin D deficient. Half the population is magnesium deficient. Almost no one, I think it's like 98% of people don't get enough potassium. So a lot of these things are causing significant chronic illness. And then stress. We live in a very stressful world. In fact, there's data that shows that if you even see your cell phone, you get surges in stress hormones. There's data that shows notifications on your cell phone call your attention as strongly as someone calling your name, which is like the most personable thing that you can do, is call someone by their name. How much do we like to hear our own name, right? It's such a powerful trigger. And so there's lots of things that stress us out. And what mental stress does in our brain causes release of stress hormones, and that causes inflammation and changes in metabolism. So these are the way I think about things. I think about things like root causes and not so much disease state, because I want to get to the root cause and fix that. because you might have inflammation and get diabetes. Someone else has inflammation and gets high blood pressure. Someone has insulin resistance and gets diabetes, or someone else has insulin resistance and gets chronic pain or fatigue. So this is the way that we have to think about things. And this is how we think about things in functional medicine and lifestyle medicine. So here's how powerful lifestyle medicine is. 80 to 90% of cardiac disease, of cardiovascular disease is preventable. 90% of type 2 diabetes is preventable. 45% of Alzheimer's is preventable. 40% of cancers are preventable. 90% of lung disease are preventable. Now look at the top 7 causes of death in the US, and that was like 6 of them. So a lot of what we're dealing with is preventable. And then a lot of these things are a lot more reversible than people think. So you can reverse type 2 diabetes. You can reverse high blood pressure. You can reverse high cholesterol. And most of it comes down to our lifestyle. Medication, supplements, none of it can overcome our lifestyle. Lifestyle medicine is the most powerful aspect. So what are my keys to success? And like I said, I'll say this till, the day I die. I am not the most talented guy. I've always been an underdog. I've always been told that I'm not smart enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not strong enough. Right. And I loved hearing that because it gave me a chip on my shoulder. When some people told me that, I would just smile and I'd say, thanks for the motivation. Right. Thanks for the bulletin board stuff. And I was like, you may say that, but my God tells me I'm an overcomer. My God tells me I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That's the only opinion I care about in this regard. Right. I always tell them, never take advice from somebody who doesn't have your best interest at heart. So I only take advice of people that I like will actually care about their opinions. And then I'll take critiques. I don't want you to criticize me, but I'll take critiques all day, right? This is what you can do better. But anyway, my keys to success: never give up. Don't ever give up. Just showing up is so much of the battle. If you show up, no matter what the outcome is, you've already won, because you've done better than most people. Most people don't even show up. They let the mental demons and negative energy infest their brains, and they quit before the race has even begun. If you've ever heard David Goggins talk, one of the things he talks about is never saying can't, because the moment you say can't, you've already lost. The moment you let those negative thoughts in, you've already lost. And he said during SEAL training, you just can't think about the negative, because as soon as you do, you start to sink. You'll won't pass some of these ridiculous tests. You just have to keep churning and keep going. I think of failure as an opportunity. I love to fail. One of the things that I think is really cool is I met a guy who used to train Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield is one of the best boxers of all time. And the trainer, we were talking about failure, and he said, yeah, you know what? Somebody once asked Evander what he learned in all the fights he won, and he said nothing. He said, I learned everything in the fights I lost. So failure is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to see where some things are that you can shore up. And it's a chance to grow. And so fail often, fail early, and then learn from it and adjust. Say, okay, this didn't work, I'm going to tweak it. This didn't work, I'm going to tweak it. And that's the approach. You may never actually have failed. You may have just found 1,000 ways that didn't work, right? But you learn something from each of those, and then you kept moving. And then never be afraid to share your story, because some of our stories aren't just for us, they're for the people around us. And so if you learned something and you went through something and then you shared it with somebody, that's a win. So it's all about your mindset and how you look at things. Like, is it a 6? Is it a 9? Depends on where you're standing, right? Never stop learning. And I talked about this earlier. A lot of my physician colleagues stop learning once they get out of medical school. They think they've learned everything. You know what the interesting thing about acquiring knowledge is? The more you learn, the more you feel like an idiot, which makes you want to learn more. I feel completely stupid every single day because I'm learning new stuff every single day. And then it pushes me forward to learn more. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything. So that's what drives me, is just to keep learning, to keep growing. So never stop learning, whether that's in your passion, your side gigs, whatever. Always have something where you're growing in. And I'll use an example for me right now. I'm trying to get fluent in Spanish, and I'm also going to learn about commercial real estate, because those are like the next two hobbies that I have that I want to invest in. This is a big thing. Keep your passions when times are hard. One of the things that I've seen people do in medical school and pharmacy school is they stop doing what they love because they feel so compelled to make a grade. You know what? No one has asked me ever since I got out of medical school or in my MBA, what my grade in this class was. Never been asked. We put so much emphasis on grades when I'm young, and I'm not saying don't learn. I'm just saying, if you make an 80 on a test, don't beat yourself up about it. No, once you get out in the real world, no one cares about your grades. They care about, are you coachable? Are you teachable? Are you hungry? Are you willing to work? Those are the things that matter, because I can always teach you what you need to know on a job. If you're in a good place, they can teach you what you need to know. But no one can teach you hunger. No one can teach you drive. No one can teach you passion. So keep your passion even when times are hard, because it helps you learn. There's data that shows we work in ultradian cycles. We have about 90 minutes of productivity before we need to do something else. And that's what I would do. I would study for like 60 minutes, and then I'd play video games for 30 minutes. I would study for 60 minutes, and then I would go work out for 30 minutes. And then I would set a cutoff time, be like, well, it's 7 p.m. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. And I kept the things I was passionate about while I was going through tough times, because it kept me centered. And it allowed me to thrive in those tough times. Invest in yourself. Always, always, always be investing in yourself. Invest in your mental health. Go to counseling. I think everybody should go to counseling. If you don't deal with your childhood trauma, you will carry it forward the rest of your life. And that impacts your mental and physical health. Invest in your physical health. 75 minutes a week of strength training, right? That's what I tell my clients. That's what I tell people through my podcast. You build your body, but you also build your mind. Strength training does so much for our willpower, for our physical endurance, for our metabolism. Invest in your health. Meditate. Have periods of rest. I schedule rest in my day, because I know if I don't schedule it, I'm a workaholic. I'm going to work all the time. But at 7 p.m., usually I'm done. No more work. I have multiple businesses. There's literally something I could do every single moment of every day. But I know I need to rest. I know I need to invest in myself. And my productivity has actually dramatically increased since I've done that. Travel and have fun. You only get one life. I always tell people, like, God forbid, if I died tomorrow, I want people to say, you know what? Richard had a really awesome life, and he tried to help people. I think that's the essence of life. When you travel and experience new cultures and new things, it actually increases something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It makes you smarter. So get out there, get new experiences. In pharmacy school, I used to go to like church with my Mormon friends, because I just wanted to experience what they were experiencing, so I get to know them better. I used to go to mosques. I went to Buddhist temples. If you asked me to do something in college, I probably would do it if it wasn't illegal or harmful to myself, right? Because I just wanted to experience new cultures and new things. And I always would try to travel when I could. And never place a limit on yourself. Oh, there's a really good book called Mindset by Dweck, and it talks about, the people who start out the smartest don't usually end up the smartest. And that's because there's so much that you can do through hard work and training. And you never know what your limit actually is. We say it to ourselves all the time. Well, I guess this is just as good as I'm going to be. Yeah, if you have that mindset, that's as good as you're going to be. But who says you can't get better? Who says you can't grow? Who says that you can't get into medical school or pharmacy school or nursing or whatever in your 50s? I had a woman, I still talk to her in my pharmacy school. She was 55 when she started pharmacy school. Okay, retired from the military, said she always wanted to be a pharmacist, started in her 50s. I had a guy in my medical school class, owned his own business, Same thing. Said he wanted to become a doctor, sold his business, started medical school in his 40s. You're never too old. Never place a limit on yourself. Always, always, always realize that you're only a finished product when you tell yourself you're a finished product. Otherwise, you can learn and grow and learn new things and challenge yourself and help other people and place yourself in different positions. Okay. So finally, we're going to talk about what I wish I had done differently. There's a lot of things, but I think the number one thing is I wish I had known myself more. And that sounds super weird because we think we know ourselves, but do we really? Do we really know what we want out of life? How do you know unless you have these conversations with yourself? Do a vision board. Like, absolutely do it. I wish I had done this earlier. Like, the career I have now is not what I thought I would be doing when I was 18, but it's what I was born to do. But it took a lot of hardship for me to get there and a lot of trying a lot of things that didn't work because I never sat down and asked myself hard questions. I also wasn't open to new ideas. When I locked in on medical school and being an internist, I didn't open up to the idea of trying out other rotations. So I took the easiest rotations. I was like, this is what I want to do. I probably would have become a different doctor. I probably would have gone into pathology, honestly, because that's root cause, right? That's the way I think and what I want. That's awesome. I love pathology. I also love physiology because that's root cause. I'm a root cause thinker. And if I had been more open and honest with myself and asked myself hard questions and planned out a vision board and then strategized how I was going to get there, my path would have gone a little differently. So be open to new ideas, explore. Even if you think you want to do something, just try something else out that you might have a little interest in, or try something out that you think you have no interest in. And confirm if you actually have no interest in it, because you have no idea what you're really going to like until you do it. All right. You know, the first time I started a business, it was funny because I told my dad growing up that I would never be a businessman like him. Never. Now it's my second favorite thing to do. And it's because I closed it off when I was younger and I didn't even explore the possibility that I could like starting my own business until I got older and realized that I don't really like working for other people. And that's okay if you don't. You know, I'm a process guy. If I think something's broken, I want to fix it. A lot of big organizations aren't like that. And so I had to do that on my own. And so these are things I learned about myself late. If I had learned about these things earlier, I could have started my entrepreneurship earlier. I could have learned about business and investing. And that's one of the things. Learn about basic business, how to do your taxes, financial literacy early, and start investing early. I don't care if it's putting away $2 a month in a mutual fund. Just start. It doesn't take that much to retire as a multimillionaire if you start like when you're 17 or 18 years old. One of the things I wish I'd done as a teenager was just give my parents back some of the money that I would get for doing chores or my high school job or whatever. I'd spend it on stupid stuff. I wish I had just told them, hey, why don't you buy some stocks for me with this money? Or, hey, why don't you put this into an IRA for me? Something like that, right? So learn about some basic financial structures, learn about investing, learn about economy. There's a really good books, Thomas Sowell, what's it called? Basic Economy, something like that. That's an amazing book. There's so many good Audible books and things like that you can read now to learn about things. Elon Musk taught himself rocket science by reading about rocket science. I mean, that's it. I mean, he was an engineer, right? He didn't go to school to be an aerospace engineer. So these are things that you can always learn and teach yourself new skills. And I think it's very, very important, no matter what you do, to learn about business and learn about investing, learn about taxes and ways that you can put up forward tax favorable solutions. We already talked about this. ask yourself hard questions. Have conversations with yourself. I spend a lot of time in my own head asking myself questions. Well, how do you feel about this? What do you want to do? How are you going to get to where you want to go? What do you need to learn? Who do you need to talk to? Are your friends really the right people you need in your life? That's a big one. Social audit. If your friends aren't breathing life into you, if they aren't supporting you, if they aren't investing in you, they're not your friends. One of the best things I did was cut people out of my life who had no interest in my development or what was good for me, or would just rag on everything I did. Right? You will actually end up being like your 5 closest friends. My 5 closest friends are all super hardworking, successful, great family people, great parents, and they drive me to be better. One of the things I also wish I had done early was take a personality test, a personality assessment like DISC, so you can learn more about yourself and how you operate. For me, I'm a DS, which means I have a lot of drive, decisiveness, right? But I also like stability and systems. And so knowing my personality type and what I do now, it's perfect. Like I'm doing the perfect thing for it. So these are just some overall, just general tips, tricks, and things I've learned along the way, things that have helped me be successful. I just want to walk you through a typical day, kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And it varies depending on whether I am in the clinic or not. So I still work for a couple medical groups part-time. The reason I do that is because right now I do not spend any of my business income. I am reinvesting every single dollar that comes in my businesses. And I've been doing that for the last 2 years. Because being a physician, one of the things that's great is that I can find part-time work. It's very lucrative. I can feed my family based upon that. And it allows me to continuously grow my businesses. Again, always invest in yourself. So I'm repeatedly investing in my businesses until I get to a point probably next year to where that's going to flip. And I'll be living off my business income and probably investing the part-time doctor work that I do. But we'll see. It just kind of depends. So usually I wake up at 5 a.m. I typically hit the gym first. The gym's kind of my me time, my kind of decompress time. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm ensuring I stay healthy because, again, I'm my best asset. If I'm not healthy, what happens? Everything stops. Who's going to run my businesses if I get sick? Nobody. I have to do it. Or it puts more pressure on my business partners, right? And again, one of my core values we talked about earlier is I never want to be a burden to somebody for something that I could have prevented. Another one is I'll never have someone do something that I could do myself, right? But I wake up, I hit the gym, I work out for about 45 minutes, come home, say my prayers, do some meditation time, right? Kind of center I've worked on my physical, I've worked on my mental, and then now I'm ready for the day. So when I'm at home working on my businesses, I spend the first hour doing what? Investing in myself. So that first hour, I read a clinical trial. I spend 20 minutes either doing Rosetta Stone or listening to TV in Spanish. And then I will listen to 20 minutes of an Audible book. So 20, and that's investing in myself. I then will take some time to recover from my workout. I have a couple of recovery tools at the house. I'll use one of those. And then I start my day, whether that's meetings. I'll meet with my business partner or my telehealth company. I'll see some clients there. I'll see some clients for my personal telehealth practice. And I'll work on my podcast. So I'll do research for my podcast. I'll find new podcast guests. I try to spend about 15 minutes targeted on social media. I don't spend much time on social media. Honestly, it's a time sink. There's data showing that the more time you spend on social media, the less happy you rate your life. because it's not real life, right? It's best of slices on social media. So if I'm on social media, it's targeted. So I get on there to connect with people who I like following, people who are teaching me things, people I care about, right? So I'll spend like 15, maybe max 20 minutes a day on social media connecting. Once 7 p.m. hits, I'm done working. So my work times from about 10 a.m. to about 1, I take a break to walk the dog and eat. And then I work again from about 2 to 7. And at 7 p.m., I'm done. No matter what, I'm done most days. Some days, you got to be flexible with these types of things, right? We'll eat dinner. My wife will come home, and then we'll hang out, watch a movie or it's a TV show, or just talk about her day. She's in business development for a med spa. So sometimes she just wants to talk about some problems that she's having at the spa. And so we'll help work those out together. So that's my day at home when I'm at home. My day when I do my PR and clinical stuff, it starts the same: gym, meditation, prayer, recovery. And then I will drive to whichever clinic I'm going to. And then what we see as an internist is you see everything, I cough, cold, sinus infection, all the way to high blood pressure and diabetes, hospital follow-ups, strokes. People have acute care stuff, after car accidents, rash develop. So you see everything. And then, like I said, in the model that most practices are, your visits are in 15-minute slots and you get about an hour for lunch. So depending on that, third physicals, like your routine checkups, are usually 30 minutes, sometimes 45. But depending on that, you'll see 20 to 27 patients per day in a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 window. Most of them are 8 to 5. So that hour lunch break doesn't really count against like your working time. And then you have to do your charting, keep track of all your patient notes, your SOAP note format. You have to do your refills. So people are usually getting 90-day supplies, but some of the things you want them to come in, you're following up on lab results that you've done. Their blood counts and their A1Cs and all of that. And then you're putting out some insurance fires, right? So typically, even though my work day at the clinic ends at 5, I'm usually not done with that work until about 6:30 or 7. And then if it's work's not done at 7, what do? Shut it down. I can start the next day. This is something that's very important to that 7 rule. I was working 17-hour days. I burned myself out. I always tell people the rule of 3s. Does this matter in 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, 3 months, 3 years, right? Most of us act like the stuff that's not going to matter in 3 minutes is as important as the stuff that's going to matter in 3 years, right? We treat every decision like it's a decision on who I'm going to marry or what career I'm going to have, right? These are big, life-changing decisions. In fact, who you marry is probably the biggest decision you ever make. So be very careful on that and put in a lot of self-work before you decide to get married. But know how important these decisions are. And so a lot of us think, oh, we have to get this done, but it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter if you do it then, or if you do it in 3 weeks, right? So I get done the stuff I need to get done. I put that in my calendar. Like I schedule rest, schedule my meetings. If I need to get a consulting project done for one of my clients, I put that in the schedule. And then I fill in the gaps with the other stuff that doesn't matter if it gets done now or if it gets done in 3 weeks. So when I have time, I get to that stuff. And I keep it in a list of here are the non-essential stuff that I need to do. And so I had a little bit of time today in between meetings and clients and stuff to scratch some of that off. I have a lot more time on Monday to get a lot of my non-essential stuff done because Monday's a light business day for me. So these are just some of the things that I found over time that have helped me in my career and how I approach my career. You got to find your own rhythm. I think that's the last thing I'm going to say. Listen to experts, see what they have to say, look at the data, but ultimately you are your own unique individual. In all the history of mankind, you have never existed before. So you have to find your own rhythm, take things from other people, experiment, try things, but walk your own path. And if you do that, you will find joy and fulfillment in life.
All right. Well, I think that was a perfect way to kind of cap this off. First of all, thank you so much. Being pre-health, pre-med students, we're really in need of this kind of advice. I mentioned this in other shadowing sessions, and it's the same here. It carries on to this one. We can leverage this advice because we are early on in the process. Medical training is relatively a long process, and we understand that going in, and it's a rewarding process in the end. But being able to leverage this advice so early on is going to be to only our benefit. So we have a few questions we can get to just to wrap up the hour that have come in. The first being about, or I'll just read it off. So what's the best way to not let failure discourage you? You talked about a lot about bouncing back with adversity. When you are someone who always looks ahead, sometimes even though failure is inevitable and I prepare for it, it is a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, I just realized it's going to happen. We're all going to fail. We're never going to be perfect. But again, I don't even like to use the term failure. I say it's an opportunity. And when something like that happens to me, I ask myself two questions immediately. What did I learn from this? And who can I help with this? So I don't think negative very often. I try to think, how can I make this a positive? And so I freely speak about my failures in hopes that it helps other people. And then also in a way for me to look at it as a learning opportunity and a growth opportunity to try something different. And also, you never really know until later in life if something was a failure or a blessing. Only time can tell that, because a lot of times I looked at stuff and it's like, man, I thought that didn't go my way. And then I look back later in life, I'm like, oh, I'm really glad that didn't go my way. There was something else for me that was better.
Yeah, we don't always know the reality of everything going around us in the present moment, but hindsight is 2020. Another question we have, or we have quite a few here. I'll try to cover them as fast as we can. But the next question we have is about your advice. You mentioned being a PharmD, an MBA, an MD, practicing as a physician with your companies. There's a lot to juggle. So with that said, I'm sure that it'd be great to hear from you in terms of the advice of balancing things when you are overwhelmed. Being a pre-med, being a pre-health student, you often have the exams in school, your MCAT, your GPA to handle, extracurriculars. And when the application cycle is coming around like it is this season up in the summer, it only makes it that much harder. So it'd be great to hear your advice on that.
Yeah, so I was kind of weird in that if you saw me before a test, I had my headphones on and I was like happy. I was just vibing like before. Why? Because it was a challenge. And what do I love? Challenges, right? They're not going to always go my way, but I that's the way I approached it. I love taking tests. I love being able to show what I could do. I love being able to put in to show the results of my hard work, right? I looked at it like it was a game, like I was playing sports. We don't like practice, but we love the game. We worked hard in practice to prepare for the game. And I applied that same mentality. So interviews, all that, I love that. I love that as an opportunity to show what I've done. And if it didn't work out, I'd say, okay, I talked to that person. Hey, what could I have done differently? What area do I need to shore up? Because, you've survived 100% of your worst days. And there's very rarely never another opportunity. You may not get the first one, but if you look at it and you look at it like a chance to grow, you can get the second one. So these things tend to come back around. Even if you don't make it the first time, you just have to have the right mindset to be able to say, okay, I'm going to change what I did, try something new. Again, what do I need to learn and who do I need to ask for help? Those are the types of things that go through my mind.
A little related to this, I guess we kind of have a theme going on with these questions here, mostly about productivity, being efficient, finding balance in life. But a student also asked, what's the best way to be efficient, specifically in undergrad? They say that although they never procrastinate, they never really find that time to unwind with the gym, or even just something as natural as sleep?
That's the best way to be proficient, right? Because you're only going to be as smart as your brain is healthy. If you're not getting enough sleep, sleep is when you consolidate memories. If you want to learn and remember things, get enough sleep. I always prioritize sleep. Same thing with exercise. There's data showing exercise improves your productivity by 22%. So what takes 8 hours now takes 6 if you exercise. Same thing with nutrition. I ate in a way to fuel my brain and my body. I didn't eat a bunch of junk. And I knew it was junk. I knew that if I want to be a highly performed machine, I need to put the best oil in me. Like if you've got a Ferrari, you're not stopping at the local 7-Eleven to fill that up, right? You ever seen a Ferrari at 7-Eleven? No. They have a special gas station that they need a higher quality gas. They need a higher quality oil. And you are a multi-million-dollar machine. Treat yourself like it, and just realize that taking a break for 30 minutes to an hour a day from your studying is not going to make or break your exam. It's not. It's really not. Most of the time, I wouldn't even study the day before the test. I would just completely relax because I know I'd put in the work beforehand, right? It's like performance athletes. Do you think these Olympic athletes are training like as hard as they can possibly train till the day before the competition? No, because they know they're not going to be in top shape when they do that. So these things are counterproductive to the way we've been taught, but they're so important for our efficiency and overall health. If you're happier, it's easier to learn. And then leverage tools like using sounds, 40 hertz gamma frequencies can help learning. Looking at things right before you go to bed. There's some data on that can help. Whatever you're having struggling with, look at it right before you go to bed. There's data showing that can help memory and retention. But these are the ways that I've been so efficient in my life, is because I prioritize what's going to actually make me efficient.
Definitely. Kind of going along with the same theme, we have a few more questions around that. I'll try to get to them as fast as I can, but the next question is around habits. So you mentioned habits as being really, just in the same way that genetics are passed on within families, habits are too. So this student here is asking, what are your tips in developing habits? And also at the same time, making sure that you keep them consistent.
Yeah, it starts with that why. You will never keep a habit consistent if you don't know your why. So have a strong why, have it be part of your values, and then form a new identity around that habit. So like, for instance, if you want to stop smoking, don't say, I'm trying to quit smoking. Say, I'm no longer a smoker. That's a much more powerful sentence and a way of thinking about things than the other. And then there's 2 really good books on this, The Power of Habit and Atomic Habits. And it talks about the science of habits and the habit loop and how you can intervene. But one of the things you want to do is make it easy. So like, let's say you want to go to the gym, set up a cue for yourself, set your clothes out the night before. And if you do that, even that small step, because you took a step already the day before, you're much more likely to wake up the next morning and go to the gym just by something as simple as putting your clothes out. Or do something that we call habit stacking. Let's say you wake up in the morning, you drink coffee, and then you read the newspaper, and you want to put in a new habit of maybe a 5-minute meditation. Stack it in between the drinking coffee and the reading the newspaper, because now it becomes linked to 2 other habits you already do, and that makes it much more sticky.
That's definitely a lot that we can leverage there. You mentioned it earlier, and again here, showing up or just making that first step is going to make the difference. It's going to be momentum that carries on. A few last questions to wrap up the hour. In terms of practicing medicine, so a student asks, do you have experience practicing medicine abroad? If so, could you expand on your experience?
I actually don't. That's one of the things that I haven't done.
Okay. And then also, a student here is saying that they have a lot of passion towards patient education, changing lifestyle before prescribing medication. But how do people get to adhere to a lifestyle change when taking a pill is easier for them, just mentally?
Yeah, you have to show them that, basically give them the data, right? If you actually look at the data on the effectiveness of most prescriptions, it's horrible. It is, let's say you have a like statins, right? Blockbuster billion-dollar drug, right? We all know about statins. If you look at the primary risk reduction for preventing a heart attack, it's like 3 to 9%. So that means there's 97 to 91% of people who take that medication, they will do nothing for them. These things work on the macro level if you're talking about hundreds of millions of people, but it may not be the best thing that works for an individual, and it may not be the best for your genetics. We know that lifestyle medicine is far more powerful. And then you have to talk to them about behavioral change and the new identity and the value-based habits and all of that. And that's why I created those resources, because I don't have time, as a physician to go into all of that, but I give them resources so they go on that journey themselves, and then make friends with a health coach. Because if you want your patients to succeed in this stuff, have them work with a health coach. They will change their perceptions and their attitudes and have great results.
You mentioned functional medicine often during the past talk there. Are there any ways, especially as undergrads, again, early on in the process, it's great to gauge our interests and dive further into them. Are there any ways or resources that we can learn more about functional medicine? You also termed it as root cause medicine. And later on with training, is there any specific type of training that you currently know of, like a fellowship that targets that specific field, that specific genre of medicine?
Yeah, so there's a couple really good books you can read by some of the functional medicine titans. Disease Delusion by Jeffrey Bland, any of Mark Hyman's books. Food Fix is a good one. Chris Kresser's Unconventional Medicine is a good book. And they all have podcasts too. So Chris Kresser's podcast, Mark Hyman's podcast, Ben Greenfield's podcast. There's tons of areas. Now, there are integrative medicine fellowships. So integrative medicine is very similar to functional medicine. And there's a group called the Institute for Functional Medicine, and they have classes on this stuff as well. So there's a lot of resources. A4M is another one that has resources on more holistic and functional medicine types.
Yeah, we had a lot of enthusiasm in the chat around, just a lot of questions pop up around habits, productivity, and also a little touching on the integrative medicine, the functional medicine topic that you mentioned earlier. Two last questions just to kind of wrap things up. The first being about, you mentioned that you read a clinical trial a day. So how do you go about choosing what specific clinical trial you will read each day? Is there a specific source that you find for these trials useful?
Yeah, so most of it is actually like I have a Google Health Alert, right? And it'll send me articles because I use it all the time. It'll send me articles on stuff that I find interesting. And I basically read articles on stuff I find interesting. And then if I want to learn about a topic, it's for my podcast. So that podcast is when I'll do a lot of deep dive and read, 6, 7 articles per episode. But in general, if I find one that's interesting, I'll do it. There's a service called Pub Crawler. It's free. You can set up alerts and it'll send you studies on things that you want to do. Like one of my clients is a CBD company. So I have it set up to send me new articles on CBD. So I can make videos for my YouTube about new research on CBD.
And one last question to wrap things up. In terms of, you mentioned that business is a big part of your day-to-day life, obviously, and networking plays a big role. When you do approach the prospect of finding partners in business, what is your approach to finding the right partners? And also, how does that vary with just individual connections, person-to-person connections with traditional networking outside of typical business relations?
Yeah, actually, most of my business partners and business dealings have been with friends or friends of friends. So you have to be very careful with who you select as a business partner because it is like a marriage, right? And things can get very messy. You have to be very clear, very upfront about your roles, very upfront about the contracts and things like that. But most of the time, I prefer, and my business partners, they all prefer to do business with friends. So all of my business partners are all friends. And we just saw an idea and we each have different expertise and we went for it. The ones that aren't friends are friends of those friends. And that's the way I would start. Going to networking events, meeting people, that's great, but you really want to know who they are as a person before you do business with them.
All right. Well, I think that's a great point to end off on. We had a lot of enthusiasm from today, and I just want to say that this was such an insightful session, much needed. A lot of the students we have here are heading into application cycles this upcoming summer. And, through the pandemic, it's been 2 years now. It is a stressful time. It would be a stressful time if it was in any situation, but particularly this far into the pandemic and just being medical school, being PA school, whatever it might be, for our pre-health students listening in, it is a stressful time, but this is definitely just the right motivation that we need, just the right kind of medicine that we need, to be honest. So we're really thankful to have you on board today, and we really appreciate your time, Dr. Harris. I think that will wrap up today's session, though. A few last things for those listening in. For those who are new, about the quiz, we posted it in the chat, so you can open that quiz link. It's a Google form, and respond to the questions. We created questions based on today's shadowing session. If you get 6 out of 10 or more correct, then that is enough to pass, and you'll receive a certificate for this session in recognition of your attendance. We do have that posted in the chat box, like I mentioned, and also on our virtual shadowing page on our website. This quiz will be due at 11:59 Central Standard Time on this upcoming Wednesday, March 9th, next week. And like I said, after passing the quiz, your certificate will be sent to the inbox of the email address you listed on the quiz. Although if you have any problems with finding that certificate in your inbox, feel free to check your spam folder or simply email us. We're happy to help. And for next week, like I said, we have weekly shadowing sessions on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. We'll be joined by Dr. Dutton on Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m. Central. This will be a 2-hour shadowing session, so it's going to be a special one. We'll go through a lot of topics, and we'll see a lot about the field of pediatrics in that one. So it's going to be from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Thursday, March 10th with Dr. Dutton. For those who want to hear more from Dr. Harris, you have an Instagram at Dr. Harris MD, right? Where people can follow you over there, hear more from you. And yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Harris, for taking some time to join us today. This was really an insightful session, and really we'd like to open up, we'd like to extend an offer to you if you'd like to come back for another shadowing session. We're happy to have you if time opens up, whenever is convenient for you. We're really happy to have you on today, and if in the future you'd like to join us again, feel free to. But that will wrap up today's session, and we really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you guys so much. God bless you, and best of luck when